Hello to everybody out there. This is Rabbi Pinchas Landis of Zoomcast.com, together with none other than Rabbi Gamil Nassan Spero, also Zoomcast.com. You can also find us at rabbilandis.com, at torahcleveland.com, and what's the yeshiva's URL?
avashatayra.com.
There you go. Those are all our online websites you can check out. So Rabbi Spero, how are you doing today?
How are you?
I am doing so good. There should be two of me, and then I get a lot more done. It's actually a very, very exciting week for me. You know, we've talked about how the minyanim are back in, I don't quite call them full swing, but at least, you know, Baruch Hashem, minyanim are back. And so this week with Partners in Torah, I've been, not for my big programs, but for my small programs, I've just been offering to each group that if they're, I'm leaving it to each group. If they want to try in person, we can do in person. And I actually had my first two in-person meetings in 4 months today. One today and one yesterday. So very excited to get back to actually seeing human beings and figuring out how to interact with them the right way. And
socials. I'm in talks. I want to make the yeshiva full-time Zoom forever.
Yeah.
So each his own at this time period, but that's the road I'm heading down.
I hear you. We know how much you like Zoom, but I actually had one of my meetings today at Big B's Coffee. So today's episode is brought to you by Big B's Coffee on Fairmont and Warrensville. So why did I go to Big B's Coffee? First of all, it's a brand new coffee shop, just opened in January. First time ever there. The reason I went there is because, Rabbi Spero, you probably don't ever have meetings with people at coffee shops. I know you prefer Jade. If you have to meet with people outside the yeshiva, you meet them at Jade. I know how you work. But I prefer coffee shops, and there's no coffee shop in our neighborhood that has any type of seating inside or outside except for Big B's Coffee. They have seating outside. So that's where I had my meeting, and
very nice.
Get some fresh air. You know, I happen to be vitamin D deficient, so I really need all the sunlight I can get, and especially during these days. So anyhow, everything's good with you. Are you moving along inch by inch? Zooming your way through inch by inch.
If I'm telling you, this is how I'm keeping it for forever.
Forever. Just you live the rest of your life on Zoom. I hear that. Anyhow,
develop bed sores on my body just from not moving off the couch with the Zoom in front of me, and just go by. I mean, we do it. I go to Minion, but
not on Zoom, in person.
No, our Yeshiva Minion is in person right now. And
do you at least take your iPad with you to pretend like you're on Zoom, pretend like you're diving to Hashem via Zoom?
Good.
No, you don't do that. No.
I wear my mask and I try to stand away from everybody.
Got it. You wear your black cowboy heist mask.
I get a lot of how many comments I get about that a day.
It's a great mask.
Shiva had a Sheva brachas last night.
Mazel tov. Who got married?
David Richmond. It was a beautiful. We had a wedding. The chasna was Thursday. And we made a Sheva brachas last night with strict social distancing. And
was it Young Israel?
Young Israel tent.
Yeah, I heard the noise. I went to daven in the B'nai Torah tent, and I heard you guys over there.
Oh,
it's beautiful.
So
yeah. That's Yitzchak's son, right? Yitzchak Richmond's son. It's from Cleveland Heights.
No, not that Richmond.
Not that Richmond. Okay.
Eric Stroll. I'm trying to remember his father's name, but not Yitzchak.
Maybe beautiful.
It was very beautiful. Great food. Pacey Albaum did a phenomenal job.
Pacey always does a phenomenal job. And more than the quality of the food, it's always with a smile. Just everything that man does with a smile. It's beautiful. Amazing
potato salad. I find a lot of people don't understand how to make potato salad. It's a deceptively simple food, but it's an important food. I think it's actually one of the 5 major food groups. And it's not made right very often. And Pacey made it good. He made kebabs that were beautiful. Very good food, very festive atmosphere. No dancing, of course. The only buffer that I touched in the last 4 months that could come across in a very dangerous way was David Richmond at his wedding. I gave him a hug and danced with him, and that's it. No one else did I dance with. Just because.
Did you wear a hazmat suit for that dance?
I didn't, but I walked him down to the chuppah wearing my gangster mask.
Good. That's important.
I think Rabbi Weinberg, we walked down to the chuppah together. Rabbi Weinberg did not wear a mask by walking down the chuppah, and I wore my bandana. But the Baruch are very happy. So
the Weinbergs are renegades. That's the bottom line. That whole family is renegades.
They're following the rules. Just
no, I'm not saying about COVID. About COVID, maybe they're following the rules, but in general, that family does not follow the rules. No, I'll tell you, I've seen them at the rock climbing gym. They're also frequenters of Shaker Rocks, like the Landises are, and they don't follow the rules there. I've been thinking about doing a citizen's arrest. I need to borrow your badge. They need to follow the rules. So that's just how it works with the family. So that's really beautiful. I'm actually beautiful. Emir Abel Helfen. Wednesday is mine and my wife's 19th anniversary. That means both the English calendar and the Jewish calendar. And it is also my pseudo youngest brother's chasana. In other words, Rabbi Friedman's son, Emir Hashem, Chaim Yosef Friedman, aka Yo-Yo Friedman, is getting married on June 17th, on Wednesday night. And it's gone back and forth like 15 times where the wedding is going to be. So as of yesterday at 11:59 p.m., the wedding was supposed to be in Fallsburg at one of those Hamish hotels. I forget which one, and just family only. Which Baruch Hashem we're part of. And then at 12 o'clock this morning, it got changed to be in Lakewood at one of the halls in Lakewood. So I don't know what the plan is as far as social distancing or just family or beyond family, but
big exciting things happening. If you're out there listening to us, come to Yo-Yo Friedman's wedding. It's in Lakewood, June 17th. No invite necessary. Just come.
Wait, I'll tell you the ballroom.
As possible.
Yeah, the ballroom is 1 second. 1 second. We'll give you a little more information here. Fountain Ballroom. Not that I know where that is, but I'm sure it's attached to some school in Lakewood because every ballroom in Lakewood is attached to some school in Lakewood. So
I might go myself.
You can ride with me. You can ride with me and my whole family. I'm sure I'll have a blast. Nothing like a road trip in a van with the Landis family, Anyhow, I had something that hit me over Shabbos. I think it's a beautiful thing for us to at least start with, or maybe even take the whole episode with. It's a Kasha Teretz Kasha, and it connects, number one, last week's Parsha. So I hope that's okay I hope Yossi gets us to let us get away with that, and we can bring up something from last week's Parsha. Happened to be my Bar Mitzvah Parsha, so I am a little bit impartial to it. That's why I'm a Nazir, by the way, because that was my no, I'm not a Nazir. My hair does grow faster than this, but anyhow, so I had
even a joke with that could get you in some trouble.
I know that's I was being a little. I'm not a Nazir. I've never been a Nazir. I never will be a Nazir without a Bais Mikdash. If it's Bais Mikdash, maybe we'll talk about it. Anyhow, so obviously the Parsha had in it the Nazir, and it's interesting. Just in general, I have to look. I have a great sefer by Eli Wolf that I have not used enough, but it's on the Haftarahs, and one of the fascinating thought processes or thought studies behind every Haftarah. What is each Haftarah doing there? It's usually somewhat obvious, not always, but it's usually pretty obvious, and it usually connects to at least one theme in the Parsha. And which just weiter begs the question, especially in Parsha like Noso, which has three distinct themes, two related, but at least three distinct themes in it. You have the Soita, you have the Nazir, and you have the Nisim, your Parsha, your name, right? You have the Nisim over there, three totally separate ideas. And but the Mesakanim of the Haftarah decided to make the focus Nazir, and the focus is of course on Shimshon HaGibor. So it relates to our ongoing focus on Nach, either through the Navi podcast, which is a wonderful podcast if you have not checked it out, available at Zoomcast.com. I'll tell you about the Navi podcast for a minute. Rabbi Spero kept telling me that he had no jokes, but every now and then he throws in a joke. He does. He mentioned about his favorite name in all of Tanakh is Pinchas, is not the original Pinchas, as Pinchas in Chofni, Eli's sons. Eli had a grandson named Ichabod. Ikavod in Hebrew, but that's the English is Ichabod. And the Rabbi Spero made a comment about how that's just the best name ever. And it is. It reminds me of a great Dr. Seuss, one of the Dr. Seuss books where he talked about itchy Ichabod, right? Anyhow, so bottom line is we focus on Nach here at the Rabbis podcast and Zoomcast.com. So we had the story.
It's not posted yet. I just finished the Vir Mishainim.
Mazel tov. We should make a party for that.
It's not posted yet. It's not up to there yet on the actual thing. But yeah,
it's beautiful.
I'm starting Yeshaya now, Mitzvah.
Wow, that's unbelievable. We had some talks offline, and maybe we'll talk about it a little bit more at some later date. But you mentioned how when you did Malachim, how you often quoted from Divrei Yamin. And
right.
I've said before that I'm doing I started one of my Corona Kabbalahs, as I call it, is to have a daily Nach study, daily Nach Chazara, but I'm doing it chronologically, not in the order of Tanakh. So I got up through in Sefer Shmuel. I got up to right before Shaul is anointed as Melech, as the first king. And so I paused and went to Divrei Yamim and did the first 9 prakim of Divrei Yamim to catch up to basically where Shaul dies in Divrei Yamim, and now I'm back to Shmuel over there. But it's interesting. I'm curious to see what we're going to get to Divrei Yamim now. You're going to say the same thing over again, but we'll talk about that another time. But it'd be just the.
I have thought about it though.
Yeah, we'll get this. The number one, the intersection of the different Sifrei Tanakh is fascinating. That's the original intersectionality, by the way. And just beyond that, just Divrei Yamim, Rav Eisman's Divrei Yamim is fascinating. It's just a fascinating. I remember he told me once, I think I told you this, I don't remember if it was on the show or offline, but he said how out of the original ArtScroll series, he's the only one who did it right. Very modest. No, he's to be honest. He felt that his 3 works, he did Divrei Yamim, Eov, and something else. I'm blanking on the third one.
Yechezkel, maybe.
Yechezkel, right? Yechezkel. The 3 really probably the 3 hardest. Yeshaya is not too simple, but anyhow, he does a fascinating job of weaving it together. The goal of what he did was to, in many ways, to show you how Divrei Yamim. A lot of people don't study. A lot of people don't know what it is. How it was really a manifesto, if you will, of Ezra. And that's what he says. It's fascinating. He says the manifesto of Ezra, that when Ezra came back to build the Second Commonwealth, Ezra's mindset was not that we're building something that's only going to last 420 years. His plan was to build for Mashiach. And as Chazal say, there are different elements that were needed. You needed Eretz Yisrael, you needed the Beis Hamikdash, you needed Malchus Beis David, which he had was Zerubbabel, and you needed the Yichus. So, and you needed to make sure to put it all together. So
how come he did? I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. So why didn't he appoint Zerubbabel as Melech?
I'll have to, again, I don't know. I don't know if it's in the work or it's not. It's a great question. Zerubbabel is one of those historical figures that, like, one day I'm gonna have to write a Con article about him, because it's just, I'm gonna write an article or give a talk one day called "Missed Opportunities in Klal Yisrael's History," and Zerubbabel was just one. There's something that I'm missing in that story. I can't put my finger on it. And essentially, you just summed it up. Why did Ezra not take it the whole way? Why did he not appoint Zerubbabel Melech? Why did he not go the distance? But it's a great question. But one of the things that Rabbi says is Divrei Yamim was the manifesto. It was the manifesto as to why we're ready. This is everything. This is Malchus Beis David. This was the whole. It's not the history of Klal Yisrael. It's not Divrei Yamim of Klal Yisrael. It's Divrei Yamim of Malchus Beis David, and it was to pave the way for the legitimacy of Bai Sheni, of Zerubbabel, of the Beis Hamikdash, of everything that was going on. That it's now this is what we're going to do. And that was not that's not where I wanted to go. It's just a whole different thing. But I'm, partially inspired by you and the Navi podcast, partially inspired by my Corona Kabbalahs. I'm doing this Nach Hazara that I'm just loving and doing historically. And
I have right now, I've made Pesach Kron Kabbalahs, not Corona, but Pesach Kron Kabbalahs. I'm trying to get through the entire Maggid series throughout Corona. So
that's a great one. That's a great one, and it's also hard. Like I'm very close to Pesach Kron, a very, very close friend of mine and mentor of mine, and up like the first 4 or 5 books, like I had it, and then he just like I don't know, he's had like 5 more since. I just haven't kept up. So
I'm up to the Maggid plays baseball.
Yeah, that's like and also your cousin has I think your cousin might be beating him even in a number of books.
Oh, Spero.
He has like I don't know, he must have like 45 books out now. Touched by a story, touched by story 1, touched by the guest. Like he's just got all the. At certain points, you got to watch it with his. Again, how it sounds, but as you said, with like Bachman before. But anyhow, but anyway, so I had a thought on Shabbos that brought together.
It's been an off-color Rabbi's podcast.
I know we're gonna. I don't know. Whatever. It is what it is. What are you gonna do? But so I had a thought over Shabbos that brought together the Parsha Shavua, brought together my Nach Hazara, brought together my history, love and just and I'll throw it out. It's a question that was bothering me. So we have the concept of Nazir, and we have Shimshon HaGibor as the story of Shimshon HaGibor brought down as the Haftarah in this past week's Parsha. You do a wonderful job of introducing all of us to Shimshon HaGibor on the Navi podcast of just the complicated person that he was. He was definitely one of the great Shoftim. You know, we definitely regard him as one of the great men in Jewish history. But you know, number one, there's some complications there, so to speak. There's some things that we that are hard to understand. Number one, and number two, he even the things that Chazal explain, he also in the end made some serious mistakes. So while he's regarded as one of the great men of Jewish history, he's definitely not regarded amongst the greatest men in Jewish history. You know, you don't talk about him as.
I'm not sure about that. I would debate that point.
Okay, but
because I feel personal affinity because I spent so much time learning about it. But if you look, it says, I just want to quote it to a medrash. The medrash says that when it says Yaakov said Lishwasa Kivisi Hashem, he's giving a bracha to Dan, who Shimshon was from Shevet Dan, of course. Right. It said he saw in the medrash. The medrash says he saw a nevuah that Shimshon could have brought Mashiach. Obviously, Shimshon is not from Shevet Yehuda, so he could not be Mashiach himself. But the way Rav Tzadok understands it is that he could have paved the way for Mashiach to come. And I don't know, I do think he was created. I think there are different types of great people. Some people more have a trajectory of greatness, which is consistent. And you have people who have a trajectory of greatness, which maybe in the middle has more dips. So maybe Shimshon was like that. But I think if the overall perspective of Shimshon HaGibor, I know I'm interrupting you, I'm sorry, but I just want to HaGibor, in the overall perspective of Shimshon HaGibor, especially if you look at the way he ended his life, he asked Hashem for one more moment. Give me one more moment. Now, he could have said, give me one more moment where I can break out of my chains and escape and go back home. You know, there's a nature to want to live. And I'm sure he had that nature. Also, everyone has that nature of self-preservation. But in the end, Shimshon's last moment is to save Klal Yisrael, is to wipe out. You know, the Mefarshim say that there were 3,000 people of like Plishti royalty sitting there, and thousands. It was like an amphitheater.
Yeah, it was
or above, and he killed. It's hard to say how many, but not only many thousands, but also of the Chashuvim, and he restored a lot of the honor of Klal Yisrael. So I do think he's one of the. Well, it's hard to say. It's like, you know, in baseball there's a Hall of Fame, and in football there's a Hall of Fame, and in Gaga and dodgeball there's Hall of Fames. If you ever drive to Chicago on Indiana, there's a place called the RV Hall of Fame. Every time I go there, I don't go to Chicago that often, but a few times I've gone, I'm like, next time I go, I'm getting out of my car, I'm going to the RV Hall of Fame. What's the RV Hall of Fame? Probably very cool RVs.
It's very cool. Our RVs are awesome. Like I just gotta say, RVs are awesome. I have a dream, I'm sure you do too, that my family at one point, Abrams will help him, will do a cross-country RV trip.
We're going to Northern California this summer.
Oh, you've done a bunch with your father.
Like me and my father and two of my boys.
You're doing it with an RV?
With an RV, yeah.
With your father?
Yeah, I don't want to fly. I'm nervous about Corona. I don't want to stay in any hotels or Airbnbs even. You know, it does make me nervous. So we're getting an RV, a place to sleep. We don't have to worry about anything else. I'm thinking about Shabbos, how we're going to do it. I'm not sure how. I haven't been in an RV in years. I don't know the logistics of, can you leave it open? You don't have worries of Shabbos, whatever. Maybe Shabbos I'll stay in a tent, whatever. We'll figure it out. We'll figure Shabbos out.
Yeah.
We're going for a few weeks. We're very excited. Yeah.
That's unbelievable. Just you and all the boys, or just you and Moshe and Shaya?
Me, and Moshe, David, Shaya, and my father.
Beautiful. That's unbelievable. That's great.
Very excited. We'll continue yeshiva. I'm going to continue.
Zoom. Yeah, exactly.
And it's sadly no yeshiva trip this year, which I'm very, very sad about.
Wait, you're not doing a Zoom trip?
We did that. We tried that on Chol Hamoed. We tried a Zoom trip.
Yeah.
We first went to a bunch of museums, which kind of stunk on Zoom. We went to a bunch of zoos on Zoom. They have, the Cincinnati Zoo was one of the zoos we went to. It was not fun. I'm sorry to say.
Cincinnati Zoo is very important to you.
Please don't bring up Harambe right now. It's almost his yahrzeit. Do not bring him. You see, you did it to me. You brought up Harambe, and now I'm going to be sad. Sorry. And now you ruined my day a little bit because you brought up Harambe, and because you brought up Harambe, you're going to force me to do something that I wasn't going to do, and now I'm going to do it.
Here we go. Hold on a second.
I have to find it. Everyone can see me like flowing through my emails right now.
Yes, and your security deposit for the 7 brachos. Oh, here we go.
I do have private email that I should.
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't know if you need to see all those, but
this is a very special video taken of Harambe a week before he was tragically killed. There was nothing Harambe loved more than to take a bath on covered Shabbos and sing his favorite Shabbos song. We miss you, Harambe. Ki Zichrei Baruch. And I want everyone to watch right now what you're going to see on the screen.
The Kuvet Shabbos Kodesh, the Kuvet Shabbos Kodesh, the Kuvet Shabbos Kodesh,
Singing the covered Shabbos
the Kuvet Shabbos, nine, 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 Shabbos Kodesh, nine, nine, nine.
Okay, so Rabbi Landis, I know you're going to make your jokes about Harambe. I know you don't take it seriously, but that was how I like to remember him. Just jumping around in the bath, Erev Shabbos, singing, being freilich, and dancing, and thinking about Shabbos. And that's how I want to remember him. Please, no jokes. Don't insult me right now. But in any case, we did Zoom trips. We're so off topic, but I don't even know what you're talking about.
So off topic. We're just all over the place.
We did Zoom trips, and they were stinky. They were so dumb.
Yeah,
I am sorry.
I'm with you.
And at first, when I saw the ad, I was like, yeah, they had some magazine, the whole thing when the Baruch sent me. You can go to all these museums and historical sites. We went to like different places. They stink. And you should know it really hurts me because the yeshiva, I just want to say now, the Brachim have done amazing during this period with the learning and really staying connected, really and truly inspiring. And I would love to do it. We're going to do a trip at some point soon. I don't know when. Maybe even early the winter if it's still good weather. We'll have to, depending on so many circumstances, obviously. But a trip is really on the highlights of the year, spending time together. But at least I will get to spend time with my father and 2 of my boys. And we are going to go on our trip.
Where are you going? You said before, but I didn't catch it.
Northern California.
Northern California? Wow, beautiful. That is, so I told my kids, I'm considering doing it. I mean, the biggest factor of why this probably won't happen is because I can't get my father interested in doing this. And if I can't get my father interested in doing this, I have nowhere to pay for it. But,
right.
But what
that's what I always do with my father. I'm always like,
no, but I don't know. Your father, my father. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I always will tell him like, you saw the new Sefer just came out. Yeah, let's get a few of them. That way I have the Sefer. So yeah.
Your father and my father are about the same age, probably. But what's that?
My father's 70.
Yes, my father's 72. He just turned 72. Or 71. No, 72. He turned 72 in January. And but I think your father's a little more spry than my father. My father's like a couple of knee replacements, and he doesn't like. My father's one of those guys who doesn't like to move out of his chair, and he's just, if it's not coming here to see us, which obviously he's not doing right now. He's not one of these guys who like retired to travel.
A traveler. Even when he was a buffer, he went with his brother and another friend. This is in 1968, probably 67, 68. He was like 18, 19. I think he was in Tells then. They drove from Cleveland in a loop. They went through California. They went to Carlbach's House of Love and Prayer, if you know what that was. That was a
heard of it.
Famous shul in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And it was a different world back then. He was telling me.
Did they go to the Karaite shul in San Francisco?
No, well, you got to talk about them more. I'm very into the Karaites. I have a lot to say about them.
I know you are. A lot to say about those guys.
But he told me it was a different America back then. He goes, now, when we went on other trips, you can really stop at a Walmart in the middle, I have done this, middle of Montana, middle of Idaho, middle of Wyoming, middle of Oregon, and you could find a million kosher products and have no problem.
Right.
You even find kosher cold cuts once in a while in these out-of-the-way places. But back then, my father said they ate a 6 week trip. They ate on the trip matzah, sardines, and salamis. That's what they ate every day. Right. That's what they lived on. A different world.
Yeah, different world. We just don't appreciate the things. We've talked about this a million times. We talked about it once. We don't appreciate what we have. Which I always have to remind everyone of the great historical point that we all have to remember. And that is, what was the first product in the world to bear a hashgacha? The first manufactured product.
Coca-Cola?
Nope.
That was Rabbi Geffen in Atlanta.
I think, it was kosher under Rabbi Geffen, but to bear the OU, to bear hashkacha, have an OU on it. Just tell me you give up.
I give up. I don't know.
Heinz baked beans.
Good
Every now and then they have a commemorative can where they actually mention they were the first product to bear the OU. So there you go. And by the way, if you want to learn Hilchos Melicha, you just look on the side of Morton's Kosher Salt. It's right there. Kitzur Hilchos Melicha, all written right there. Anyhow, I got to get to my Kasha Teretz Kasha on Shimshon. Because I think this is good stuff. And you already started to give a little bit of mahalach towards it in answer. So first, the Kasha, I'll give you the Kasha. I know what you're going to say is a teretz, and I'll give you the kasha on the teretz, because the teretz is pashut. But then I have a kasha on the teretz. So the kasha is, Shimshon is the paradigm of Nazir. In other words, you can't talk Nazir in this world without talking Shimshon. And part of it is because not only was he a Nazir, but he created the concept of Nazirus Shimshon, which was that Nazir is really something, as we saw in last week's Parsha, that with a Beis Mikdash or a Mishkan, only was for 30 days, and you bring your korbanos and it's over, and that's Nazirus. It's a temporary term. But there are certain people who had longer Nazirus. By the way, in this issue of Kankan, I have an article about Helena Hamalka, fascinating person. Helena Hamalka was a Nazir for 21 years, Nazira, I guess, but I think the only in all of Chazal.
Very unknown fact that you look at the pasuk, it's right there in the pasuk. Ish ve'isha, a woman can become a Nazir just like a man. Just we don't think of it.
100%. But I believe the only time in Shas where it mentions a woman being a Nazir is Helena Hamalka, who's again check out this coming month's issue of Kankan magazine for my article on Helena Hamalka. But Shimshon's the paradigm. Nazir Shimshon we talk about all the time, and Hatar Nadarim we talk about Nazir Shimshon. That's a thing, right? Okay, you mentioned how you would make the argument that Shimshon was a top, a level 5 gadol in Klal Yisrael's history. My question is coming from a premise that while he was definitely one of the great men in Jewish history, he was probably maybe a level 4. That's where my question is coming from. And we have an example, and again, I don't want to play my gadol can beat up your gadol. That's a rough game, and we'll play it maybe later when we're off air. But I think you would agree with me that if we would compare, they always have on I'm sure you're a big ESPN fan, and right now with nothing to show on ESPN, they've been having like every Montag and Dienstag and Motzei Shabbos and every day in between, they have all the goat competitions.
Oh, really?
They bring out all these goats and see which one can eat more grass. No. Right? That, who's the greatest of all time? Is it Tom Brady or is it Joe Montana? Was it LeBron James or Michael Jordan? Is it Felipe DeLupa, who's the best Gaga player of all time, or Nassim Spero, who's the
him.
So that's like what ESPN's doing now. So we don't do that for our Gedolim and for the great many from all generations, from the Gedolim of any point in history. But my kasha comes from a point of saying that we do in Jewish history, I believe, have a Nazir La'olam who is greater than Shimshon, and that would be Shmuel Navi. And I think you'll agree with me that if you're talking Shmuel Navi, like Shmuel Navi was somewhere between a Shofet and a Melech, and definitely
he's compared to Moshe. Shmuel Navi is compared to Moshe Rabbeinu.
It was huge. Huge, right? Huge in our history. Shmuel Navi is a very, very, not to say Shimshon wasn't, but Shmuel Navi definitely, he started the idea of Malchus. He's the one who united the Shvatim to make us back into one country, one Am.
He was Meister Nefesh for Klai, so he traveled up and down the country his whole life
until he had not a drop of life left in him and died at the age of 52, right? That's Shmuel Navi. Shmuel's a Nazir L'Olam. So why don't we refer to his Nazir as Shmuel? Why do we link it back to Shimshon and not to Shmuel?
I think the simple answer is that even though Shmuel Navi was a Nazir, was a Nazir for life, for his entire life.
And by the way, very similar story in the Nazirus and how it came about in the beginning of their life. Very similar parallels there.
There's a whole lot of questions on there. Does that chalais work if a mother does a Kabbalah for an unborn son? Does a chalais of Nazir? There's a whole bunch of interesting questions that we're not going to touch upon.
On both of them,
Right. But I think the answer I would say is that you don't see Nazirus comes to play in Shmuel's life. Not that he was a Nazir. But you don't see it come into play, and it's actually the fascinating discussion, which we didn't have last week, but really, we had it last year, I don't remember, what is a Nazir? Is a Nazir a good thing? Is a Nazir a bad thing? Or the real answer is somewhere in between. Depends on the personality. So, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not clear. It's clear from Shimshon HaGibor's life why he was a Nazir La'ilam. It's very clear. It was his personality. You see what the Gemara in Saita says about him, right? About it. On the one hand, he was lame. He was crippled.
Right.
On the other hand, certain things he wanted. It's very clear why he would be a Nazir, because he was a person who had those types of taivas that fit in with becoming a Nazir. It's never clear why Shmuel becomes a Nazir. It's obviously that it has to be that way because it's Min HaShamayim, but we just don't see an apparent clarity. So maybe that's the reason why. But it's a good question.
So that is actually a much better teretz than what I thought you were going to say, and I'm actually pretty comfortable with that as a response. That if you look at Nazirus, which is as you said, a complicated institution, and Shimshon's whole life is connected to that Nazirus in an intrinsic way, in an intimate way, from beginning to end.
Right.
Yeah, I think I like that. I like that as a response.
We know that, right? We've talked about this, that the Nazir brings the carbon chatas, right? Because he has, actually, machlek is why he brings it. Is it because he held himself back from Hashem's pleasures? Because he held himself back from other people? Whatever it is, he brings the carbon chatas. And right. The Yerushalmi in Tainus does say that a person being a Nazir, about a person making the Dharam. That's what the Gemara says over there.
Right. It
says, why would you give yourself more Yisurim? So to go back to, that's what Hashem says to the person. Yeah. You don't have enough? You already can't eat pig. You already can only eat an animal that's been shefted. You can't eat meat and milk. There's so many, you can't eat ostrich, right? You can't eat gorillas, right? Don't go there now, please. Yeah, you can't eat gorillas. All these different foods you can't eat. You want to trigger me. And it's enough. Why isn't that enough? And why you have your own thing? So I think, and Shimshon, there's no question. I think really the Rambam talks about this. The Rambam said it's inconceivable that Shimshon married Nashim Nachrias. So he says they had a shracha geirus. That's what he kind of tries to say. It was
that comes up, by the way. That is it's a very fascinating topic. A lot of this question in Tanakh comes up all over the place, right? Or Nach comes up all over the place. Comes up with David HaMelech and Bathsheba and by Uriah Chiti, and comes up with like you said by Shimshon. It comes up with all over the place. It's all, Shlomo HaMelech, Izebel. By the way, a whole fascinating. Again, this is my last week. I sent you the article about my article about Asalia and Izebel. Right. There's a big kash about if Izebel was Jewish or not.
Right.
If Izebel, but think about it for a minute. And this is what you saw the article, right?
Right.
If Izebel, you can't say Izebel wasn't Jewish.
I mentioned it later on. I talk about it in Navi podcast.
Yeah.
Many Mefarshim say she wasn't Jewish, but there's a whole line of kings who come
from her. That means the Mashiach isn't Jewish. I mean, again, chas v'shalom, like it can't make sense.
It either she had also a shracha geirus of some sort,
right,
or her children did convert of some. I agree with you. I have a great answer to that question.
Yeah. But I like what you're saying about Shimshon.
The one side point. Interesting about Navi, I find, if you have a question on a Gemara, or if you have a question on a story in Chumash, it's not possible it's not spoken about. It's almost impossible it's not spoken about. When I gave a chabura, I gave a shtickle tire for Mendy Klein's Yartzeit Sefer, and I was hesitant to give it in because I had a question on the Gemara in Sukkah, and I ran it by Reb Shalom, and he told me it's worthy of putting in a Sefer, so I put it in. But it bothered me because I found no one else spoke about it, and I said it's not possible that I was mechadish the question. So meaning, but it's not like that in Navi. I find in Navi I have many questions trying to understand something like this question itself. I couldn't. Obviously I'm not saying I looked at every single makar. I don't know every makar, but there's no. There are not the resources that you find on Chumash and Gemara and other things like I said, an Agadah to Gemara. There's many resources on every Agadah to Gemara, many resources every parsha in the Torah. It's very complicated, this question. Yeah, go ahead. I interrupted you again.
No, it's true, and that's why I think with my passion in general for history, the time period of Tanakh is one I'm most passionate about, is just from a historical perspective, figuring it out, how to loop together all the different Sfarim and with Josephus and just figuring all that out is a fascinating. And, anyhow, but I like what you're saying about Shimshon. I think that resonates with me. What I thought you might say, and this is, I threw it out to some people in Shabbos, and most people said one of these two things. And I think either one of these is not a good teretz. Is number one. Well, he's the first person mentioned as Nazir Elam. So Kol Hoich Achar Haschala. But you see many times. Yeah, but you see many times in Yadus we don't do that. And the other one is that Shimshon is mentioned Beferish and Nach as being a Nazir Elam, where Shmuel Navi
never mentioned.
Mikra never tells us he's a Nazir. So to that, I would say, if that was the territory you gave me, to that I'd say another kasha is, when did that ever stop us before? In other words, the fact that something is not pshuto shel mikra, is not written openly in mikra, is never stops us from something that makes sense hashkafically or makes sense philosophically. So, I think you gave a much better approach. I like what you're saying, that
very good.
Shimshon, his life and everything about Shimshon is innately tied up with the complicated institution.
His life is so chiddishtik, and what he did was so revolutionary. I mean, what he did was, he basically said, I'm going to marry Goyim, I'm going to marry Nashim Nachriyos, right? And I'm going to do that to infiltrate the Pelishtim and commit acts of terror against the Pelishtim.
Right.
And we all know, as far as I know, you can tell me if I'm wrong, the first makar we have, what acts of terror, that idea of terrorism, what's terrorism is, you don't have the army, but you commit acts of terror in a country and you throw the people off balance. And even though it's like, the Taliban compared to America, we know is minuscule, but anyone who was alive 9/11 remembers the feeling of vulnerability that day, especially in the months after it. So Shimshon to me was the first.
Al-Qaeda, not Taliban, but okay, yeah.
What? Al-Qaeda, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It was the first time in history that Shimshon was the first time in history that we find, at least that we find terrorism. And so he gave up really his life to an extent. And he gave up, and the Chazal criticized him. It says one of the things the Pelishtim did to him was they plucked his eyes out.
Right.
And it says, because the Mishnah says in Saita, Allah Chafra'enav, he went after his own eyes. He didn't consult with other people. Who would he have consulted with? He was a Gadol Adar. He was a shayfet. Rav Shalom Kamenetsky told me one time. He said he heard this from his cousin, who was very close to Rav Shach. And Rav Shach outlived his whole generation. Rav Shach lived to be 110, maybe 108. Time he lived to be. He was the same age as Aaron Kotler, Moshe Feinstein, Rav Kamenetsky, and he outlived them by years. He outlived them by 40 years almost.
Right.
So I asked him, so who did he consult with? He said he consult with Aaron Leib Steinman. He was much older than Aaron Leib, probably 25 years older than Aaron Leib. They're not the same generation.
Right.
He said, but you have to bounce ideas off somebody else. All great people. David HaMelech had advisors. All great people have advisors. And he said, even someone like Rav Shach. So I guess the mistake was, even though Shimshon was the Gadol Adar, he was the Shayfet, he really should have discussed his Chidushim. The Chidushim were very radical, but he was a great, he loved
you had Navim. You had, again, we don't have any, we don't 100%. Have any Navi recorded from any name of a Navi from that time. I'm
sure there were Navim.
But you for sure had Navim. Yeah.
Even Navim had Kivas back then. So
exactly, that's why.
Known.
Have you ever seen Rabbi Landis's class on Jewish themes in Star Wars?
I have not.
Oh, I'll have to give that to you.
By the way, before we talk about Star Wars, did I say this joke already? If I did, I'll say it again. It's been a while. Rocky, okay. I'm towards the end of Empire Strikes Back, so don't ruin any plot lines for me.
Wait, okay? You're towards the end of Empire Strikes Back with having seen the prequels, or you haven't even seen the prequels yet?
That's like modern times. I'm not holding there. I'm at holding a part where Darth. I saw the version in Yiddish. I didn't see the English version. I saw the Yiddish dub. So I saw the part where Darth Vader, said the "Ich bin dein Tate," and Luke yelled out "Nein," and he fell off the thing. That's what I'm holding.
Yeah, so okay.
I don't believe it's true, that story out of Chas v'Shalom, to say that Luke Skywalker, a Kaddish Vitar, came from Darth Vader. So just don't ruin anything for me.
Okay, I won't ruin it. But what I will say, okay, well, this was from prequel, then I can't say. I'll say it another time. But Lahavda Elfaf Evdalos, that the way what they say about the Jedi's is you can understand Nevius. The people think Nevius, I'm just walking down the street and I get Nevuah. But no, it was something that you had some innate, but you worked on yourself. You had to work on it, develop it.
I was reading an article by someone called himself Orthodox. He was talking about one of the Nevi'im. And he wrote, he was an ignorant peasant farmer. I won't even say which one it was. And he became a Navi. I would just, that's...
No.
It's such a ridiculous idea.
Fake news. This is fake news.
If you look at the Rambam, it's so clear what it takes to become a Navi.
Yeah. And
even, interesting, the Drush Saran says that Moshe Rabbeinu's Nevuah, part of his Nevuah was a gift from Hashem. Because it was so much higher than everybody else's. And that's why no one else could be like him. But everyone agrees. So you want to say that his Nevuah was level 100, everyone else only got to 80, fine. But Moshe got to 80 or 90, he got there on his own.
Yeah, for sure.
There's no gifts. Even Bilam. Bilam was a Russia, but even his Nevuah was not through a gift. He was, I don't want to say he deserved it.
He had to develop it. He had to develop it.
But it was it wasn't just some random person who got hit with a thunderbolt and was like, the Rebbeinu Shalom was talking to him. It's such nonsense.
Yeah, nonsense. It's fake news, totally. Okay, I'm going to have to
find this guy's address, Rabbi Landis. And
What's that?
We're going to find this guy's address.
Yeah.
And we're going to do a run by fruiting.
Run by fruiting on him. So, I'll just wrap up with it, just in talking about Shimshon HaGibor, and you're talking about that last fateful act, and the words that he said are really, Klal has many anthems. And he really said the anthem of martyrdom, which Klal Yisrael unfortunately has had to say time and time again. But it's that message of Tamus Nafshi Ima Plishtim, and that's what my soul will die with the Philistines, and that's been unfortunately, for better or for worse, an anthem in many ways of the Jewish people throughout history. That they're just the idea of Mesiras Nefesh and the need for Mesiras Nefesh. And
so you're saying he was the first martyr. He was the first person. That's a very good heart. I never thought of that.
Right, he was the first one. The other thing I will say, and with this will conclude, is I don't think he's the first. He's the first case of Jewish terrorism, but I think there is a case already in the Chumash of terrorism, and that's from Moab. Moab's infiltration of Klal Yisrael, I believe, is terrorism also. The whole approach of sending the women, and the whole approach over there. And along those lines, I would also maybe say the Malik is terrorism. But okay, whatever. We can have a discussion on terrorism another time. You're right, definitely from a Jewish perspective, and it's guerrilla warfare, and it was a terrorist. He brought that to. So anyway, we want to thank you all for listening. We want to thank you all for your attention. Please be sure to like this episode, share it with all your friends, tell the world about it, and
your enemies.
And your enemies.
Don't just give it to your friends. Go to your enemies, get their email, and email this baby to them. And then when they say, hey, why'd you email it to me? Say, because you're my enemy, buddy.
Exactly. And remember that Harambe's life mattered.
There you go. You ruined the rest of my night now. Now I'm going to be crying by night later.
Okay. Well, everyone have a great week, and we'll look forward to talking to more next week. And in the meantime, a big old fat welcome to the guest.
Welcome to the guest.